Hey, welcome to another episode of Off the Fence. In fact,
Off the Fence!
Special edition.
Special edition.
Special edition.
I didn't get the buffalo plaid memo, but that's fine. I'm wearing
Christmas
green.
edition, and I could not be more comfortable than I am right now.
I'm happy for you.
This is probably the most comfortable outfit I've ever worn.
See, but pajamas, they get really warm really fast, and I'm just not a...
Well, see, I think that's a part of the problem.
I'm not a fan of them.
Is we get pajamas to wear to bed when I would rather wear pajamas to work.
Oh, so you're going to flip that switch?
Why not?
Yeah, all right.
You know?
That's fine. Just day-to-day life. I mean, people do it when they go shopping now, just wearing whatever. So isn't that a people of Walmart thing? We don't need to go there. Christmas
is now officially over, but we don't want to let it go over just yet.
Yes.
So we want to talk a little bit of traditions.
Tradition.
Get into the mix of traditions. Everyone's got, in fact, even today, people are probably living out some of their post-Christmas traditions.
Yes.
Of when do you take stuff down? When do you not take stuff down? All that kind of stuff.
What do you eat?
What do you eat?
What activities do you do?
Yep.
Because there are like 4 different types of traditions, I think. There are food traditions. There are faith traditions, gift traditions, and activity traditions.
Wow.
Like what we do.
You have that highly organized.
Well, they're just categories because that's how my brain works. Did you know, I was looking up stats, 52% of American adults take with them into adulthood their childhood Christmas traditions, which is fascinating because most of those adults will get married, which means that you have these competing traditions that you're trying to fuse into one.
Yeah.
So like your family on Christmas Eve does pajamas. That's a gift that you get to open.
Yeah, but see, pajamas, that's a loose term there.
Well, in that realm, you get to open
underwear and socks.
Well, you get to open a present on Christmas Eve, but it's always going to be that. My family, Christmas Eve was huge. It was a huge deal. But we usually got to open one gift, but we got to pick which gift it was just under the tree. We just got to pick a gift. It wasn't a specific thing. And
you would always, and it still blows my mind, but I love it.
What?
You, as a family, did not have all the gifts wrapped.
No. And
that
we
blew
still
my
and that
mind.
So your pajama Christmas Eve tradition, we carry that still. But my family's tradition of half wrapped and half unwrapped, we've adopted. So we've kind of gone down the middle of the road where some of mine, some of yours, and
which is amazing because if you don't have to wrap it, how fantastic is that?
It's amazing. And what I love about it is that our kids will inevitably get up at 2 a.m. and be so excited, but they have some things to keep them occupied. So our rule in our house is, if it's unwrapped, you can play with it. Like, take it out of the packaging, play with it. Let us sleep a little longer, but don't touch anything wrapped under the tree.
But again, let's talk about this. That was not our family tradition that we had discussed. That was a family tradition that I learned that we had because I was a little upset. Remember the first time because I grew up where you didn't open up anything because this is about Jesus.
Right.
So nothing got done until the story of Jesus' birth was read. And so I had to go through like, wait a minute, the kids are playing with presents before we've read Jesus.
But Jesus is not absent from the tradition we do, but Christmas Eve was when we went to bed already having read the Christmas story in preparation for the next day.
I know that. That's why it's one of those things with traditions that you're just like.
And I was the one doing it though, so I just kind of made an executive decision.
Right.
Because you were probably already in bed or something. And so I just went, this is how we're going to do it. But food traditions, because I'm interested to know, like, I think sometimes you get so much into the rhythm of the way that you do things that you don't even realize that you do have traditions.
Right.
And so even taking a moment after Christmas and going, what traditions do we have? Are we even aware of them? Because you just kind of fall in line and do them. And is that what we want to do? Because that's what I love is we talk really in preparation for holidays. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What's our budget for gifts and all of that? Like, as adults, we can make changes if we don't like the traditions.
Well, that's the thing. I think it just takes a person going, hey, let's start a new tradition.
Yeah.
And so we
did that a few years ago with cinnamon rolls.
Right. And it's amazing as an adult, the freedom you can give yourself going, hey, let's do something that we've not ever done before.
Yes.
And so I like talking traditions after many of us have just behaved out our traditions.
Yeah. And may not have even.
And saying, you know what? What about starting a new one? Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite Christmas traditions?
I love watching It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
When we were growing up, my mom worked in retail. And so Christmas Eve, Dad worked for the state. And so he got Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off and the day after. And so he was really the one that got presents. Mom did all of the like back stuff, but like, getting the presents and getting everything organized. But Dad was the one that we would do final decorating and wrapping presents and doing all of that stuff. And it was so much fun. But we would always have, growing up, the record player on with I just remember Stevie Nicks and the Beach Boys, like random, whatever Dad wanted to listen to. So we always have Christmas music playing in the house. Ours looks a little different though, because we are at church most of that week, not even just Christmas Eve. But I would say something that we've managed to maintain is something for the kids to really like know is going to happen is we have a lot of really good food on Christmas Eve. So even though we may not all be home a lot that week, we have that. And then we always watch It's a Wonderful Life. And my next one would be we try to make it, we traveled a lot when I was growing up. We'd get up and open presents and have a little family time, but then by 10 o'clock, you're getting ready and we were driving an hour away to be with family. And my favorite thing that we do is often we have the blessing of having family come to us because Christmas is really busy for us. And so my favorite thing is actually just spending time laying around and enjoying one another and not rushing anywhere. I would say that's actually probably It's a Wonderful Life and the rest and relaxation and family time.
It's true when you think about, because Christmas season, if you've got kids in school, you are now recovering from the kids' programs and parties and maybe your office party. And so I feel like December, almost after that first week of December, and carried us all the way through Christmas is just, there's a lot of things to go
there's
to,
so much stuff,
to be at, to make, to prepare for, to watch, all that.
What are your favorite traditions? What are some of yours?
I love as a family, making where Christmas isn't just our thing to experience. Mm-hmm. So I love that even if I wasn't pastor of our church, that week isn't consumed with what am I getting? It's there's a major portion of it is what am I giving?
Yes.
Like we even talk to the kids, like two things, like literally like the Magi, the three wise men, brought a gift to God. Kids, what gift do you want to give God?
Yes.
So I love that. Talk about it. Then the older ones will serve in some capacity, and I love it. It's one of the most exhausting times of my entire year. I'll preach. Who knows? I mean, I have to count through.
Well, you've already started.
So I'll preach like 10 times or 15 times. I don't know. But so it's always really exhausting, but like a good exhausting. So I love the family's giving. Now on the receiving part, and I enjoy food a lot. So it's like this. There's so many, like, I know this is probably unhealthy. There's emotions connected to some of the food that we eat.
It's a power of tradition, though.
Well, yeah, you mentioned even like the cinnamon rolls, like I don't know, there's just something about it. Another one of my favorite is actually when it's all over. The older kids and I will usually like straight up binge watch a movie series. I talk to the kids What's a series of movies we're going to watch beginning to end. We will take bathroom breaks in between. And I do not encourage binge watching like on a regular basis, but like the day after Christmas.
Yeah. I'm so glad you guys do that and do not require me to be part of that. Thank you for that.
It's just so awesome to watch. We've watched all the Harry Potters or
Pirates of the Caribbean.
I remember it wasn't too long ago when we did the Back to the Future, and I was used to the Saturday morning version of Back to the Future. Yeah, it's not as clean as I thought it was.
I've still never watched those.
For the kids, that first one has this, yeah.
So while you're doing that, I'm starting to take down Christmas decorations, really? And we'll work through that again because you don't love that, I know. One of the traditions though that we have too is a word for the year.
Yeah.
We just spend time thinking about a word for the year in preparation for the coming year.
Yeah, different people do, like when you think about life and leadership and what should you do with your life and what shouldn't you do, what should you start, what should you stop and all that. Well, there's goals, there's objectives, right now people are working through New Year's resolutions. For me personally, what's been more meaningful has been for me to spend concentrated time going, God, is there a word, like literally like a word that I can focus on, that you would want me to focus on all year long, in this case for 2023. And God, I not necessarily just goal, because I get so goal oriented that I sometimes miss the meaning of what I'm doing. So one of the traditions I now have that we as a family talk about, and as a staff and church, is asking, Lord, would you give me a word to just dwell on? It might be a challenging word, it might be an encouraging word, it might be a growth word.
Yep.
And so every year, and so all the sermons for like 2023 for Fountain Springs Church will come out of a specific word, in this case, trust, to where the sermon series, the agenda to it is how do we trust God? What's that look like? So there's a relational component to that. There's a informational component to that. And just let the word lead.
Yeah.
And so
but
a tradition
it's an anchor
what's
too,
the word?
which I love.
Yeah.
And it's not just this word sounds nice. There's also a commitment to spending time with the Lord and listening and saying, so what's something I want to work on that maybe has been revealed to me, or what is something that the Lord is just prompting me to think about, or whatever. Like there's some intentionality to it that I think is really powerful, because it requires us to be still and rest and listen to Him too, and just think about what He wants for us. And I love that as for me personally, but also just I want my kids dwelling on that too.
Well, I want to start the year not with what do I want to do, but God, where do you want to lead me? Classic Psalm 23, He leads us. God, where do you want to lead me? And so that's why I want to start with, Lord, I think you already know what plays out in 2023, what should, or what you want of me and for me and all that. So rather than me say like, I just want to be more in shape, or I want to read more books, or I want to start a new hobby, or it's like, Lord, would you, and every year, He gives me a word. Like there's a word that just kind of surfaces and it feels like it's being reminded to me, and it's on repeat. And I'm like, okay, this is the word. And a lot of times I don't have a clue what that means.
Yeah.
And then there's times that I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I do not like it. But
we've had friends too that when they share, because collectively we've got a lot of people now that do this, and they'll even share their words, and they're fearful or a little concerned about what that might end up manifesting itself out to be, like walking out to be. But every time they see it come alive in beautiful ways and believe that the Lord is going to move, and He does. And it's just a really cool practice.
So I do it with the staff every year, where we have a specific meeting, and I even prep them for it in December. It's always in December. And I say, all right, if you've been on our team, you have a word that you've had, and then you
hopefully
also
you remember it.
Hopefully you remember it, and then you might already have a word for the next year, and we just reflect together. So that's one of the advantages. Like, what can you do from like post-Christmas, then leading into January to get off the fence just in life, it could be this practice where you think, okay, what do I do this week with my family, friends, roommates?
Yes.
Is maybe say, God, is there a word you want me to dwell on? And maybe you've already been in this practice to where then as years build, you get to reflect on the previous year and then talk a little bit about the future coming up. Reminds me of like the jar that you have for us. It's not like a word, but it is a tradition that is, I think, helps you reflect on what God did in the past year.
Absolutely.
Have you told everybody about that jar?
I don't know if I have. I should have brought it. It's kind of like it's like a living history museum of our year. So it's a gigantic mason jar. And it sits we have a little breakfast table, actually where the kids end up doing homework. We spend a lot of time sitting there just casually because we don't eat there a lot because it's not big enough for our whole family. But we sit there and it really is incredible. So we fill it up through the year with maybe tickets to a concert that we went to that we really liked, or a family photo. Like when we brought Hayden to college, there's a family photo in there of all of us at his college. But meaningful moments, Bo finds rocks on walks and puts those in there. So at the end of the year, on the 30th or on the 31st of December, we will again this year, like we do every year, sit around the dining room table, eating all of the delicious food that we've made in our jammies or whatever, because we've been watching movies all day, and we'll take everything out of it, and each person in the family gets kind of a pile. And then we just take turns going around and going, oh, I remember that day. That was awesome. And it's just a way to reflect and help our kids and help ourselves remember how big God is and all the awesome things that he did, and even the hard things, but how he got us through them, and then spend time praying for the upcoming year. And within that context, we share our word.
Yeah.
And we share it just to be able to share and inform our family, but also for accountability. Because if it requires us to really be thinking about it or being intentional with it, we want people that love us to know about it so they can help us walk that out. So if my word is like strength, like I want to get stronger in my knowledge of the Lord, or even physically stronger, we can keep each other accountable for that. So I love that time. That's really special.
I think when you go into a new year, one of the easy things to do is you're thinking about what you're going to put into your new year. What am I going to do differently or new or fresh or add, or even take away? But it's like, what am I going to do to it?
Yeah.
And that's why I think this practice has been one of the most influential actual practices in my life, is realizing that it's not about what you're adding or cutting, but it's about what you're remembering.
Yeah.
And what you work at remembering builds so much into what you need to be doing and should be doing and how God's leading you.
That's so true.
Sometimes we don't even know what God's doing, or it feels confusing or abstract for God to lead us. And I think a lot of times that's because you're not working at remembering. And
like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Or
so
in
previous
a machine,
generations, oddly enough, previous generations, I think, were so better at this than we are. They would write down stuff and document stuff and have picture books and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've got all these pictures on our phones that we rarely go back even reference, or we require Facebook to show us what we posted in the previous years, what we're losing is what God's doing in our life and what God wants to do. And what I've been amazed by is how God leads me. This sounds weird, maybe not, by how he has led me. So when we remember as a family, I'm then brought back to, I think, alignment, going, oh yeah. I remember when God was leading me to this, and I experienced that, and I wondered, was that you, God? And now that I'm remembering what you've done this past year, I'm realigned with, oh yeah, okay, now I'm back in line. I love it. It's actually been huge for me.
But that's why I think traditions can speak so loudly into our lives. That's why we want to carry them into our adulthood and in our parenting and stuff. And I think it's because it is their anchors that if used well, we end up being able to see them and remember what God has done, but intentionally, purposefully, not just at random.
Yeah.
And we want that for our kids. We want that for ourselves. Even the movies that we watch. One of the things I love about I have a lot of favorite Christmas movies. Most of the movies I've seen in my life are Christmas movies because they're just great. But so many of them remind us what it's all about and what we're here for. Yeah. And I think that that's really powerful too. I love the word of the year though, because it forces you can't just it's really hard to just throw a random word out. You really have to put the work in to think about it and process. And that's what I love about it is it requires me to really spend time thinking and praying about what God wants for me.
Well, I land us on what's coming up. But before I do, anything else you want to talk about with traditions or?
I think I would just like to tell everybody that we love them very much and we hope that they had a great Christmas. And if they didn't, there's a new year around the corner. And we are with them for that.
Well, one of the things we're doing right now, what this episode does is it buttons up something that Katy and I have never done in our lives. This is the final episode of 2022 of podcasts.
High five. I have short arms.
And we've never done it. So I hope for those of you who watch, listen, that it's been of value to you, that really, at the least, it's made you think about what God's been wanting you to think about and dwell on.
Amen.
So what I want to say, I'm going to plug this. I'm doing a plug. Coming up this week is a sermon. And just related to Word of the Year.
Did you wear the shoes that bummer. That would have been
so
awesome.
We're not gathering like in person this week. The first of the year, I usually preach a very specific, unique sermon, and I've done so, and it's about trust. And so I wanted to plug it a little bit because here's the premise is a lot of us are going into this new year. And especially if you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to a couple like us, you know that we love God. But what I found is a struggle in my life and most anyone I've ever met is we believe in God, but we don't always trust the God that we believe in. We believe that he exists. Like we look around like, you know what, intelligent design here. It takes more faith to believe that this is accidental than it is purposeful. And so we believe that that there's an almighty, that there's a creator, but trust in him on a daily basis, learning to actually trust for real is tough.
Yes.
So I put together a sermon, and here's the connection. I'm afraid of heights, like terrified. Like when we go, if we ever stay in a hotel or anything and there's a balcony, like I can hardly look over the balcony. I don't know what it is. I fell out of a tree as a kid. Maybe that's it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So okay. Anyway, so the word of the year for the church is trust. How do I not like risky, but like, how do I trust God and not just believe in him? And, so the plug is, I would love for you to hear the word of the year for Fountain Springs Church, but I taught it in such a fashion that I made sure that it was in an environment where I would be absolutely terrified.
You would be exercising the very thing you were teaching. So that's awesome.
So if you can find time with family and friends, it will be coming up this weekend. And I hope, I guess if you're really far behind on podcasts, it's the first of the year sermon, and you can go catch on that. But as we talk about the word of the year, trust. So thanks for tuning in, however you've tuned in.
Yes.
We're grateful to be able to be a part of your life in the way that we've been able to be. So we love you very much. And so until next year, we hope you get off the fence.
Love you.
Bye, friends.